What's up guys, Gamestro here, back in the video. Today's video will be a new character swap series. Basically, this will be talking about how two characters would change the timeline in Total Drama. So this is what if Jasmine and Joe swap seasons. So this is a Pahkitew Island, and this is Revenge. So this is the Pahkitew Island, this is Revenge. I'll be going from sequence, I'll be starting with Jasmine, and then going into All-Stars to see how that would also change in this timeline as a result. So Joe is actually not in this. Jasmine will be on the Mutant Maggots team because the reason why is Joe's originally on that team. It's very hard to say how the team would go. So stick with the original as best I can. I'm saying she's on this team. I think Jasmine and Brick would have a bit of a friendship. Episode 1 is getting their logs down and making episode 1. So basically the first part is getting their totem off, and obviously B would come with the same strategy. I think Jasmine is a very supportive team leader, a very supportive person. She'd help her team use a similar strategy. I think Brick would also respect Jasmine a lot, and I could see Jasmine and Brick here in this episode building a friendship. And she says she really likes Brick's attitude and caring for the other campers. Mike and Zoe are still Mike and Zoe. Zoe gets thrown off Mike, catches her, and still turns the Chester in that. And the rats get their first building their statue, the wind blows it over. And because of that, Stacy still annoys her team, gets voted off. Episode 2, this is the obstacle course challenge. Jasmine will basically take Joe's role where she was originally. So basically this is answering the questions, embarrassing herself. Brooke would still say he pissed his pants like the original. That he wet himself, and B would still admit his name is Beverly. Jasmine would tell her team that they don't have to reveal anything if they don't want to, which is fair enough. And here, Jasmine would replace Joe taking across, and she says this is the order of her team. Mike should go last because he's quite athletic. So Mike and Sam, Cameron would go last. Jasmine would also actually compliment Cameron's intelligence and how he's actually quite smart and very useful to the team. She would tell Cameron that he should go last, as if you want to prove yourself to the team, that makes sense. If they're going strongest to weakest, we need to make sure that they're able to handle it. Brick volunteers going second against Dawn, and Jasmine will go against Scott. So Anne-Marie and Lightning, like the original Lightning, would still show off a bit, which makes sense. Then Anne-Marie presses it to Brick, and Jasmine would still pass it. Scott is still throwing the challenge, so he would still slow down for about 15 seconds. Dakota would still not want to mess up. Because of that, not a lot really changes here. Dakota would still get voted off. Episode 3, this is where basically this is capturing the flag. Mike would still turn to veto Maria, which attracts Maria. Dawn would still have that talk with Zoe that parts of Mike that is Mike love him. And I could see Jasmine being friends with Zoe and Mike, and meeting Cameron here. And Scott sabotages B, and because of that, B still gets voted off. Again, not a lot has really changed. Episode 4, now we get into the big one. Because Jasmine's here, first of all, Jasmine would be a lot more protective and make sure that her team is fine. So getting the clues, obviously she wouldn't throw Cameron into the tree, so she would just go up to get it herself. Lightning was still captured like he does originally. Zoe gets captured and Mike's looking for her. Zoe then turns into the veto. Jasmine then has a confessional saying it's very suspicious that he's looking for Zoe, and then all of a sudden he just changes personalities. Jasmine starts to realize and think maybe Mike isn't just Mike, and he might be more than he lets on, and his characters might actually be other personalities. Brick would still volunteer to go back to try and save Zoe like the original. I think Jasmine will want to go, but Brick says no, you're a great leader. Because remember, Brick respects Jasmine in this timeline. He wouldn't have a soured opinion like Joe. So he would tell her, I'll go back to save Zoe. Which he says, be careful, Brick. because she cares about him, because I feel like they'd be best friends. They wouldn't have a rivalry unlike Joe, but I feel like they would actually be quite close. If it was a rivalry, more of a friendly rivalry, but Brooke was still captured. Jasmine goes off with Cameron, and Emery and Mike are making out. Dawn gets caught by herself. Scott and Sam still have the statue. Scott grabs it, he's still trying to throw. And what usually happens in this episode is Mike turns to Svetlana and frees Brick and Cameron, because Cameron gets caught. Jasmine will get caught by herself. Probably Jasmine wouldn't leave Cameron, so she doesn't get caught. And Joe tells Brick to run out, win the challenge. Jasmine wouldn't do that in this timeline. Jasmine would say, forget the challenge, we need to save our team. And because of this, in the end, Brick would still save his team. I expect that Dawn would still... I think the Rat would probably still win, because I think Jasmine would go to save... Brick would save the rest of his team, as he realised he cost them the loss. So I think the Maggots would lose. Actually, who would save Amaria's... Oh, this is the wrong episode. First of all, Brick wouldn't sacrifice himself as tribute, as he originally did that because Brick broke his code of honor. But now that he wouldn't break his code of honor, Jasmine would have to vote someone off. So her and Brick are together. Cameron, Mike, and Zoe are together. And I think here, Jasmine thinks about getting rid of Anne-Maria, because she's the least helpful in the challenges. He obviously is getting on Zoe's nerves. So she tells Brick to vote for Anne-Maria. These two vote for Anne-Maria. Anne-Maria votes for Zoe. Zoe votes for Anne-Maria. Cameron votes for Anne-Maria. Mike votes for Anne-Maria. It looks like Anne-Maria's going home. But luckily it's a non-elimination. And it's just the loser gets switched to the other team. Episode 5. This is basically where we have the challenge we have to go in the water and get the points. The skis challenge. Okay. So Scott would still be stealing everyone's items like he does originally to frame it on Dawn. And Brick would still go in the suit like he does originally. Jack Osmond's pumping. Lightning would go in it and Scott would pump for his team. Mike and Zoe would be talking, but Anne-Marie's on the opposite team now, so she wouldn't be able to make out with Mike. And obviously Cameron figures out he has multiple personalities. I think Jasmine will actually talk to Cameron what's up with Mike. Could you find out a favour for me why Mike's actually very suspicious? Do this, I'll help you get further into the game. I'm just worried about him as a teammate, which I think Cameron would accept. So in the end, Scott would probably go in the water, and Lightning would put too much pump water into it. I think Brick would win the first part of the challenge. Second part is shooting the target. Scott would say his shot's way off. Jasmine's the driver, Zoe's the shooter. She'd say Brick is the shooter, I'll be the driver, you three be on the back. Lightning would obviously still be the driver. Scott the shooter, everyone else is on the back. Anne-Maria's complaining that she doesn't want to get her hair wet, but she'll help in the challenge. Scott realizes Anne-Maria might be easy to manipulate with her relationship with Mike, so he keeps that in mind. So in the end, Brick's able to get the 3 points, Svetlana gets the final point, Scott still sabotages his own team. Because these two would be working a lot more sufficiently, Jasmine would still turn around to see that her gun blew up, but luckily, thanks to Brick's actually able to make sure everyone's safe, so the Maggots win the challenge. Scott would still frame the items on Dawn, and because of that, she gets voted off. The reason why I think she wouldn't vote for Anne-Maria is Anne-Maria, he thinks she'd be easy to manipulate, and because Dawn's suspicious of him and already called him out, Scott can't really have that, so Scott gets rid of Dawn here. Dawn tries to play her fake idol, which Scott's able to trick her. Episode 6, Runaway Model. This is where Sam usually goes. So this is basically where they have to get dressed up the Maggot and the Yeti. So Jasmine would be alright at the makeup part. Obviously, they dress up the Yeti. I think the Rats win with Anne-Maria to dress up the Yeti. The second part would be going up to track the Yeti. They probably would use Jasmine for this now. And Chester would still come out. And Lightning, Scott, and Anne-Maria would get hit down. I think the Rats lose. Because Scott's still throwing. They vote off Sam. Actually, Sam's brain's starting to mush. Would Scott get rid of Sam here, or would he rather get Anne-Maria? I think he gets rid of Anne-Maria because if they merge, Anne-Maria and Zoe could actually cause an argument. Because he wants to probably keep Zoe on his side, he votes Anne-Maria. Now this vote's actually important because this is the team swap. We swapped on this team, and this is a what-if series that Joe has swapped. I'm going to say Jasmine and Scott swap teams in this timeline. Brick is sad that Jasmine leaves, but before Jasmine stays to look after the rest of the team, they hug, and that's that. Episode 7 is A Mind's a Terrible Thing. Scott would still probably have the immunity idol. Probably would still try to throw on his team. And Brooke would still be afraid of the dark, so he would use his boot, slide down. Lightning causes a cave-in on his team. So, episode 7. And nobody would get captured by Ezekiel this time. Scott still trying to throw. And I'm lighting up the statue first. But there's no Brick to turn around this time. Jasmine would encourage her team. Keep going. I think Brick would still save Mike, Zoe, and Cameron. The maggots are losing this challenge. So it's kind of funny by Scott actually throwing the challenge. They actually lose. I don't know if Scott has the idol at this point, because in episode 8 it stated that he found it. So I think the 4 would vote for Scott. Brick would vote with Scott. And even though Zoe is close to Scott, she's a lot closer to Mike and Cameron. So I think she votes for Scott here. So Scott would get eliminated. Episode 8. So, here they push their raft across. They get attacked by the squid. They run across. Because there's no Dakota here, they'd have to actually go around the bush. And Jasmine, Sam, and Lightning would find the digging spot correctly. They would win the challenge. Cameron, Zoe, and Mike vote for Brick. Jasmine's devastated, but she hugs Brick goodbye before he leaves. And that she'll miss him. But before Brick can get eliminated, Brick gets the immunity idol. Meaning that Brick's vote's the one that counts. We see a flashback where Scott actually almost found the idol. We see early on in the morning when Brick was on his jog, he accidentally tripped on a rock and found the idol. I think this is a lot more realistic, as, first of all, Brick plus I need to get someone the immunity idol. So I think Brick actually has the idol because he's the odd one out on his team. Brick decides to eliminate... He sees a couple, so he decides to eliminate Mike here, as Mike is obviously the threatening of the two. To eliminate Zoe, as she's a bigger threat and the best challenge over biggest threat outside of him. So he uses his idol to get rid of Zoe. Before Zoe goes, Mike reveals his personalities and gives her a kiss. And that's that. The merge. The only difference we have in the merge is we have Brick, Sam, and Jasmine instead of Joe, Scott, and Zoe. By rats. How about maggots? This episode's Grand Chef Auto. Mike and Cameron are in an alliance. I feel like Brick would be in an alliance with Jasmine. Sam and Lightning kind of outsiders. So Lightning still gets called by himself. Sam will be alright here. I think Mike would be very good at this challenge because he's not being blackmailed by Scott. Jasmine would more than likely win. It's very close between her and Brick. And I think Jasmine would give Brick immunity because he knows that he get voted off. So Brick's military training, he's able to win the challenge and Brick wins immunity. So Jasmine and Brick decide to vote for Lightning because he's a massive threat. Mike and Cameron vote for Jasmine. Actually, the two convince them we gotta vote for Sam or Lightning. And I think they choose to get rid of Sam here. As Sam's completely out of his mind, he's brain's gone to mush. He's not in the game. And I think they all realize it's a bit unfair for Sam to be here. So they decide to eliminate Sam. Episode 10. Items. Heather would still be testing it out. And then the challenge would be trying to stop Heather with the money. So Jasmine gets the hot air balloon, and Brick gets the helicopter that Zoe got originally. So Lightning would still make his. Cameron still has that. Brick has that smoke machine that he uses last challenge. That Joe has originally. But nobody sabotages Jasmine. I think Mike's out the running. He has the wing, so he's probably out. Lightning gets sabotaged by Brick, I think. I feel like Brick, he's an honorable person, so he wouldn't use the smoke machine. Lightning would get to the top fighting Heather. Cameron would still bust in, he wins immunity. So Jasmine and Brooke realize that they need to get rid of Lightning because he's obviously the biggest challenge threat and will be a huge disaster in the finale. So they convince Mike and Cameron to vote for Lightning, and Lightning would vote for Brick. So Lightning is eliminated. Episode 11. This is Eat, Puke, and Be Wary. Okay. So everyone's doing the cooking part. I think Jasmine would be pretty good at this. I think Jasmine wins the first part. Cameron would get Mike free from the chains. They're all racing to the end. I feel like Brick would probably carry his friend Jasmine. They're very close at this point. It's very close. I think Brick would win this challenge. So easily, Brick would win this challenge. So, Cameron and Mike vote for Jasmine. Brick and Jasmine, though, want to beat someone easy in a tiebreaker, so they vote for Cameron. Jasmine and Cameron tie. I think Jasmine can just beat Cameron in any tiebreaker, and I think ultimately that's what would happen. Cameron would go home. Episode 12. Jasmine team up, and Mike's on his own. Mike has his personalities to get the fire plant. And I think Brick would originally have the plant, but then Jasmine would get attacked. So Brick would probably go back to save her. So who races to the end? They have half a map, so they're all just racing each other. This is really hard for me to say actually who wins this challenge. I probably give it to, I think Brick in the Jasmine. Well, my hair is on Brick. I'm probably going to say Brick wins it. And I think Brick being an honorable opponent would rather take Jasmine than Mike to the finale. So I think Mike is actually out third place. Mike. As they've developed strong feelings for each other at this point, they're very close. And they each get winning endings. So this is where they're pinning each other down for 3 seconds. And Brick and Jasmine have to fight each other. Jasmine realizes she obviously can't face Brick in a hand-to-hand combat. And she has to be quite smart about this. So they both get winning endings, depending on who wins the season. I probably think Brick wins it, but either way, it doesn't matter which one wins, because he gets his fashion school, Jasmine won her flower shop. They would both split the prize money with each other and help each other start the businesses. So this is the revenge timeline if Jasmine was here instead of Joe. And now we'll get into All-Stars and Pahkitew Island with Joe. All-Stars cast, and I'm replacing one character in this timeline. I know this is a what if Jasmine and Joe swap seasons, but I'm replacing Brick as I think Brick is a more realistic All-Star, because I don't get why Sam was originally here. But if you disagree, that's fine. So basically, Chris will divide the teams. Alejandro on the villains, Sierra heroes, Heather villain, Courtney heroes, Duncan and Gwen, Lindsay, Mike, Zoe, Scott, Cameron, Lightning, Brick. Now we have a potential problem because Joe's on the villains team, but Jasmine's not a villain. So Courtney becomes the new villain on the villains team because Joe isn't here and Jasmine's more of a hero like Brick. Episode 1 is getting your keys and pushing the carts. So Scott would do it because Scott's the closest one and wanted to do it originally, but now that Joe isn't here, he would have to do it. Brick is also doing it on his team, so he would push the carts. As Lindsay was originally volunteered thanks to Courtney, Alejandro still busts out the robot suit though, and ends up winning the challenge. The heroes lose, not a lot really changes here, they just still vote off Lindsay. Episode 2, this is basically digging your items. Jasmine and Brick would develop their relationship at this point as a friendship, best friends, and Jasmine gets this weird feeling, and Brick as well as confessional. They're best buds at this point. Mike would still actually get him the shovel by Scott. Lightning miscounts, and because of that, he gets voted off. As Alejandro and Heather decide to temporarily work together, as Gwen's trying to befriend Courtney, Duncan's obviously trying to be friends with that as well. And that's really that. Episode 3, this is basically the shooting the leeches. Now, Joe's not here this time, so Scott doesn't get shot. Brick would be really good at this, and Jasmine, I imagine. Duncan would probably still save Gwen from the leech. See, Cameron gets shot. I think Scott would get shot. Courtney throws Gwen. Heather would get shot, arguing with Alejandro. Mike gets shot. Sierra gets shot. Jasmine would get shot at this point. Brick gets shot, and because of that, the villains actually lose this challenge. I think Courtney would get shot. So, Alejandro and Heather. Duncan votes for Courtney. Courtney votes for Gwen. Gwen votes for Courtney because she's annoyed at her for throwing her under the bus. Scott likes Courtney, so he's going to vote for Gwen. Heather votes for Courtney, and Alejandro votes for Courtney, meaning that in this timeline, Courtney's the third person booted from the season. Episode 4 is the pancake eating challenge. So, Jasmine would be pretty good at this. Brick's pretty good at eating challenges. And I expect the heroes would still win this part of the challenge. Because in episode 3 there actually no team swap because there's no hero on the villains team that would act more villainous. This means there isn't a team swap. Gwen and Duncan probably would still break up here, but I do feel like Gwen would probably be a lot more willing to try to be with Duncan. Because the villains would lose and there's no one to cheat on this team now, Alejandro and Heather decide that there's a couple in the game. So they convince Scott that they need to get rid of Duncan or Gwen. They choose to get rid of Gwen because overall that she is a much more... They choose to get rid of Duncan because Duncan's a lot more of a threatening player, and Alejandro and Gwen want to keep Scott wants to keep Gwen on their side, so they decide to vote off Duncan, meaning that Duncan will never be mentioned in this timeline. Episode 5, this is the Egg Inspection Challenge. So, talking about the wrong episode. So, Gwen goes across the bridge by herself. Everyone, they go across together. Mal still comes out. Mike switches from Mike to Mal. The heroes lose. And Cameron asks them desperately to vote off Sierra because she's freaking him out. Brooke and Jasmine, even though Mike cost them the challenge, I think they agree that Sierra has to go. So Mike, Cameron, and Sierra, they vote Sierra. Jasmine, they vote for Cameron, so Sierra would... So they vote off Sierra. It looks like Sierra's going home. But this is an elimination round. This means Sierra is now put into the villains team. I think that would be interesting going forward. No Sierra in episode 5 until the episode 5. Episode 6 is the opposite. No eggs. Spanish inspection. So they all get the eggs. Heather still finds the immunity idol. Alejandro swipes it. Brick would still... With Brick and Jasmine on the team, I think the heroes would only do better in this challenge, and already Duncan's not doing that bad boy arc, and because of that, here we now have a situation where Alejandro uses the idol and he gets rid of Heather. Episode 7, this is the Fears challenge. So, Sierra fails to go for it, Cameron would fail his fear. So he gets a free point for last challenge. Mike gets a point for Zoe. Alejandro gets a point for fighting his brother. Say Scott fails against Fang. Gwen gets a point for fighting Courtney. Brick's fear would be being afraid of the dark. I think Jasmine could convince Brick to do his fear. They would comfort each other and kind of be with each other, so he does it. As between Jasmine is the fear of the dark. I think Brick could easily, claustrophobia could comfort Jasmine. Says, I'm here for you. You're my best friend. I'm not going to let you do this by yourself. But even if Jasmine didn't do it, the heroes have already won this challenge. But this is the elimination where they decide who they want to eliminate the villains. And they choose to get rid of Sierra because Cameron is freaked out by Sierra. So Sierra would still get voted off. Although they want to get rid of Alejandro. It's merge day. Oh, sorry. Merge day. This is the merge cast. The only real difference in this merge, we have Brick and Jasmine instead of Duncan and Courtney. Bye-bye heroes. Bye-bye villains. So, we don't have Courtney and Duncan in the merge. Who do they pair with? Alejandro's off by himself. Mike will still destroy the boat. Gwen gets in the boat by herself. Brick and Jasmine. And Scott goes in the boat of losers together. But because Scott isn't able to, Cameron can't hold up Scott, and Duncan wouldn't leave the boat to help the mansion this time, Scott would actually fall into the water. And Brick, being a man of his code of honor, and Brick is the person who is code of honor and is about saving others, would actually turn back with his boat to save Scott. So Gwen would win immunity. Alejandro would win immunity like he does originally. But what usually happens here is Mike rigs the boat since Cameron, and Cameron gets eliminated. I don't think he would consider Brick and Jasmine. I know they were previous finalists, but I think he would see that next time they go to elimination, he could just convince Alejandro and the other four to get rid of them. So Cameron kind of gets screwed over here and gets voted off. Episode 9, this is the 100th episode where they have to save Ezekiel. So Alejandro gets his boot stuck. Mike and Zoe are together. Scott's off by himself. I don't think it'd take much for Scott to get captured. Jasmine and Brick get caught together because Jasmine's claustrophobia and Brick is afraid of the dark. They have to comfort each other. Alejandro gets caught by himself, falling through that hole. Gwen still wins that challenge. That makes sense to me. Mike and Zoe. And they realize there's practically a couple. They're not a couple. Alejandro says Brick and Jasmine are very close. They're not a couple where they got on so well, so they realize Brick and Jasmine can be quite threatening, as they were the final two of the last season. And Zoe and Mike wouldn't like this voting with them, though, because they are friends with Brick and Jasmine. But I still think they vote them off. So Scott will join Alejandro in an alliance with Mal. So, who's the bigger threat? Jasmine or Brick? I think Mal would choose to eliminate Brick here, as Brick's a more physical threat than Jasmine. Even though Jasmine's a leader, they would be worried about facing Brick instead of Jasmine. So the 5-2 vote, Brick's eliminated. Jasmine hugs Brick goodbye and farewell, and is disappointed and gets the rest of the team why they voted her off, why they voted him off. Episode 10. Here, though, Mal would realize that he needs to get rid of Jasmine because she's a big threat in Alejandro. But I think at this point he would rather get rid of Jasmine because she was a previous finalist on with Gwen. So what would happen here is basically now Mal is able to... Alejandro tries to sway everyone. They don't listen. I think Jasmine's the only person that will believe Alejandro. Even though he's not a good person, I think she would believe him because of what happened to Brick last time. So Mal would win immunity once again. And Mal convinces Scott and Zoe we need to vote off Alejandro or Jasmine. We need to vote off Jasmine. Gwen's on board, so she decides to vote for Jasmine. Jasmine or Alejandro. They decide they'll vote Alejandro because he's a massive threat. And I think Jasmine being the only other person to vote for Zoe. I think they choose to eliminate Alejandro like they did originally. Episode 11. So this is basically eating your ice cream. So they decorate the ice cream. Mal still blows up the fire plant, accidentally saves Gwen from the alligator. Jasmine will be pretty good at this. She makes ice cream, so who would end up winning this challenge? Zoe probably still wins that challenge because, again, Scott didn't know he finished it. Mal's not got his personalities and Jasmine. I don't see her being good here and going up brain freeze. So I feel like Jasmine could convince Scott to vote for Mal because Scott wouldn't care. And Gwen, she's the swing vote. These two vote for Jasmine, these two vote for Mal. I think Gwen votes for Mal actually in this timeline, and I think Mal's actually eliminated. So episode 12, this is basically getting the items. Scott still gets the diamond, Zoe gets the Yeti, Gwen gets the painting, and Jasmine gets the golden Chris statue. I would think to look in the golden Chris statue in Chris's house. I know that's the thing Mal says originally, but it just seems like a decent piece of logic that would make some sense. Zoe has the easiest task of getting the Yeti across, where Scott and Gwen would have some time and Jasmine getting their pieces. And because Jasmine's still looking and she has no luck finding the statuette is, I don't even know what the statuette is. We never find out what the statuette is. So, 4th place, Jasmine. And Zoe's obviously taken Gwen to the Scott to the finale because Gwen's been in the finale before. Chris is disgusted by the painting. So even if that wasn't the case, she'd have to face Scott. They each get winning endings. So this part's probably more of a rewrite, but we have to decide how the ending would really go. And I'll spin a wheel to decide all the helpers that Scott and Zoe would get in this version. So this is the helpers that end up getting in the finale. First off, it's Zoe, and she gets Duncan. The reason why I did this is they could shoot down any helpers, and I don't know who they could get. So, Mike. Okay. Scott's helpers are Gwen and Jasmine. So the first part's getting across the ravine. Gwen and Jasmine help Scott. Mal wouldn't really care, but I imagine that he would want to help Zoe try and win because obviously she was his ally. Zoe wants to try and get rid of Mal back to normal. Duncan is kind of... He knows that that's not Mike, he's obviously Mal. He's seen him from Juvie. So Zoe's a lot more skeptical than she was originally. They climb across the ladders. Zoe and Mike fight. Mike turns back into himself. Scott and Zoe each get winning endings. On Hookah Falls by Chef. It's Zoe's winning ending, Scott gets hit, and then Zoe's winning ending, Scott's winning ending, Zoe gets hit. So thank you guys for watching. And this is the part for All Stars and how All Stars would go. So now we'll go to Pahkitew Island. This is the elimination order for All Stars. So now we'll go to Pahkitew Island and see how that season would actually play out. Because this is part 2 of the video, we're going to say Jasmine is where it was originally. So Joe ends up replacing Jasmine and is on the voting team. Episode 1 is making the forts. Okay. So, first episode, Joe will be pretty good at making, helping with the tree fort. Other than that, though, nothing really changes, so Beardo would still get eliminated. Episode 2 is the opposite, of course. Joe will be very helpful in this challenge. And she wants to be a team leader, so she's trying to lead the rest of her team. As Joe, at this point, she would want to be team leader, so I think everyone would kind of be okay with that. She'd probably want to try and get someone in an alliance, mainly, I think, Topher. I don't think she'd try to get Rodney, but Rodney wouldn't be able to speak to her, because I imagine Rodney wouldn't have high standards. I imagine that Rodney wouldn't be able to talk to her, like Jasmine. And Scarlett and Max probably would be with Joe in the alliance, and Amy as well. Not a lot really changed episode 2 here, and because of this, Leonard, because he was trying to use his version of magic, Joe just runs past him because she has a 5 o'clock jog. He's still getting eliminated. Episode 3, this is the Bubbles Challenge. And because Joe wouldn't go scavenging out with Sammy because she's all about strength, I think here that the sister was still fighting Joe would be there, and the Bears would still win this challenge. because Sammy in this timeline never was able to switch the apple because she doesn't go scavenging with Joe, and considering how she was on the outs originally, and Joe's all about strength, I think Joe can convince everyone to vote for Sammy as she's obviously the weakest link on the team. And Sammy would actually get voted off this time. Sammy's the weakest link on the team. I think Sammy gets eliminated here for the same reasons in canon. However, unlike the original where she switched the apple with Amy, that wouldn't happen here, so she's actually voted off. Episode 4. So as we're moving on right now, I think Amy would still get a point for obviously not liking his sister. Rodney doesn't get a point. I feel like Joe and Sean would have a rivalry in this season. And Max probably gets the point. I think whatever it is, Joe would get the point. Dave would fail. Sky would probably still fail. Sean passes. And it's a tiebreak between Rodney and Ella. Rodney would still lose, and because of that, Joe would convince everyone to vote Rodney off. Episode 5, this is basically where they have to do the battle with each other. They have to battle with the sticks, and you get the first three wins. So Sean's really not at this challenge because he sees Amy and thinks she's a zombie. But first of all, that wouldn't happen because Sean's at the challenge. And the three people that would go would be Topher and Dave, neither of them get a point like the original. Then it would be Ella, Sugar, and Amy. I think Amy would probably get that point matching against Sammy. She does seem a lot more aggressive. Then it'd be Max and Ella. Max would still use the eel like the original, and he gets the point. Sky would be annoyed, so she would go next, and it would be Scarlet because Sean wouldn't really mind because it's not Jasmine this time, so he'd be okay going last. And Scarlet, like the original, Scarlet ducks, Sky swings and misses. Neither of them get the point. Joe versus Sean. I decided they both swing at each other and they both are able to get a point. Now, Sean's originally in the woods, so we don't know what rounds could have been. It could have random. It could have been like Max and Sugar. So I'm going to... But Chris said they each get 1 point, so I'm going to say they all get 1 point. Topher and Dave go again. They both don't get a point. Max and Ella. Ella pacifies the bear. Gets the point. Chris says don't sing again. Then it would be Joe and honestly Sean. And they get a point. But let me know in the comments who to win that fight. That would be interesting. And then in the end, because Sammy's not there this time and she won't return on like Amy, I now think the floaters actually win this challenge. So, Sean, Sky, and Dave, who are they going to vote for? Would they rather vote for Ella or Sugar? Because a nice person or a horrible person. I think Sugar would make Ella vote for herself. Ella would be nice enough to vote for herself. But the other three are voting for Sugar, so Sugar is eliminated. Episode 6. But I have one thing that decides one of the team's favourites who wins. And that's Dave. Now, Dave originally has a banana. But then it's taken by Sugar. It's eaten by Sugar. And they have to pacify the bear to get free Dave to get the medal. But now I don't think anyone will be dumb enough to eat the banana. So there wouldn't even be enough time for the floater from Max and Scarlet to set traps. Meaning that they wouldn't trap the rest of the team. However, I still think Topher will be able to get Chris's phone. As at this point in the season, this is where Topher was starting to try and become the host of the show. But because everyone would be annoyed at, I think the Bears win this challenge. Because everyone's getting annoyed at Amy and kind of started to realize that maybe Amy was actually the evil twin, I think they just vote off Amy. Even though Max is annoying, I think Joe would want to keep Scarlet and Max around. Even though Max is annoying, he hasn't actually done anything wrong in this episode. He's not trapped anyone. There's no Ella to sing, so Amy would get voted off. Actually, this episode's important, I believe. And Amy's out. So Amy's eliminated. Episode 7, this is the pits. Ella just replaces Sugar, so she would carry the slug and make her come along with them. Joe and Topher are together, and she decides to make an alliance with Topher, and she sees Max and Scarlet are quite close enough to going to choose each other. However, she also sees that Max is quite annoying and Scarlet could possibly betray her. Chris says everybody gets out the wrong exit, and because of that, you all suck. This elimination is it's non-elimination though. This episode is important because Sky and Max would still switch teams. Non-elimination. Episode 10. Episode 8. This is where they have the 3 zombies and a baby. Like the original, I expect that at this point, Sky would still tell she misses Dave. Max would get in with the rest of his team. Topher would still get chased around by the bear. And they're running across. Topher still get chased by the bear. As trying to run the 5 and the rest of his team. Now this seems like a good opportunity for me to where that Ella would sing to save Topher. So she sings to save Topher. Topher causes a cave-in on his team. It looks like everyone votes for Topher. But Ella sang. Which means Chris would have... And said, if you sing again, I'm eliminating you. And considering that Chris did this 2 episodes earlier, I have no reason that Chris couldn't do the same thing here. So Ella would get eliminated. You know, fair play to Ella, she made a lot closer to merge. She'd be really good in the Will Total season, though. I did enjoy Total's What If. That was very good, actually. He's good. He's another YouTuber I enjoy. So anyway, Ella is eliminated. It's merge day. Merge cast. Bye-bye floaters. Bye-bye bears. The only difference we have is Topher and Joe instead of Sugar. And obviously Joe, for obvious reasons. Episode 9, this is Heroical Seek. Now, Dave would still win the first part because he's trying to impress Sky. Sean hides in the tree. And because Joe would be quite good at this, she would probably fail. She would probably go, but I don't think she'd win. Because Jasmine isn't here now and Sean was in the tree by himself, recently surviving a zombie-themed challenge. And I don't see Topher being that good here because of his losing a shred of his confidence. I think Sean wins. Dave votes himself. Scarlet votes for Max. Max votes for Topher. I guess at least out. So Max, Dave, and Topher, that kind of the big 3. I think Scarlet votes for Max. Sky would vote for Dave because she was annoyed with him. Sean would vote for... So Max votes for Dave. That's 2 of Dave. He votes for himself. 3. Joe probably votes for Topher for the last challenge. Sean's the swing vote. I think he votes for Dave. Which means in a 3-2 vote, Dave is eliminated just like normal. So now the pairs. Max and Scarlet. Sky and Topher, and this will leave Joe and Sean. So, because of this, they get in the same way as they did originally. Scarlet takes over, freaks out Max, and the mission is stopping Scarlet. Because Sugar isn't here, Joe would tackle Scarlet, meaning Joe would win immunity, and it's an automatic elimination for Scarlet and Max anyway. How did Topher get to the final 4? Episode 11, this is basically the race to the top. So because no one's a couple, that no one's teaming up with each other, I think Sean and Jasmine would have a rivalry to try and get to the top. And Sky makes it, I think, it's very close. 4th place, Topher. Topher's one of my favorites. Topher would come 4th here. I don't think he's beating Sky, Joe, or Sean. Episode 12, this is the talent contest. So I'm just going to sit the original talents here as I don't know what exactly Joe would pick. Jumping over the hurdles, I think Sean would come first. I think Joe gets 2nd and Sky comes 3rd. This is the only of the 3 I think Joe wouldn't be that good here. I expect that first would be Sky, second Sean, third Joe. Now we know what Sky and Sean performs. But what does Joe perform? I think Joe, I don't know what her talent could be because in this episode Joe wasn't here. So I imagine her being like a leadership role or something. And I think because the three did that well against each other. So first she comes last. So first once, Sean second, third twice. Sean first, Sky second, Joe third. Sean first, Sky second, Joe. So third place, I think it probably would be the talent. I don't know what Joe's talent could be. Let me know in the comments what that would probably be. But I feel like that Joe would just do a talent. She wouldn't let that phase her. So because now they're actually quite, I think they're actually all tied because they all came first in one challenge. I think now we'd have to have a traditional vote. So Sean, I think he's going to go for Sky. Sky's going to go for Sean. Now who's Joe going to face in the finale? I think she votes for Sky, meaning Sean is in the finale again. So Sean and Sky. Sean and Joe. So they're partners. Rigged by Chris. Sky, Sean gets Sky. Joe gets, who would Joe get? She gets Max, just because he was quite annoying. So the first part is helping their team getting across down the hill. Max would be quite good at this. I think Sky would be pretty good. I think Sean and Sky would be a better team. The second part would be the mud. They get through the mud. Sky and Max then have to do a share. They each get one endings depending on Joe raging out on the hill and the rocks fall on them. And that's how I think it would go. I probably would give it to Sean still, but that's how I think the season would go. Elimination order, and thank you guys for watching. This is the series. This is what would happen in the series if Joe and Jasmine swapped seasons. The full timeline as a result. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you guys enjoy this series. Also, let me know in the comments if any of the World Tour characters you want me to put in that season. And yeah, peace for a while.